The stars hung silently in the blackness of space, cold and distant. As the Empire's mighty fleet patrolled the border of known territory, for centuries they had ruled the galaxy without question. Their laws shaped the systems. Their fleets kept the peace often through fear. Nothing dared challenge their power. But on that cold, forgotten night in the deep void between sectors, something impossible happened. The alarm came suddenly. Sharp, loud, and terrifying. Inside the command tower of Outpost 9, red lights flashed across every panel. Officers froze. Mid-sentence, the sound of boots echoed as soldiers rushed to stations. Admiral Soren, a battle-hardened leader with 30 years of service, stepped forward to the main display. His face, usually calm and calculating, lost all expression as he saw what had triggered the alert. There, drifting just outside sensor range, was a warship. It was massive, larger than anything in the Empire's fleet. Shape was unfamiliar, a long black body with sharp wings that curved like claws. There were no energy signals, no ID codes, no heat signatures. It was like a ghost. But it was. Real. Very real. Soren narrowed his eyes. Magnify. The image zoomed in, and the bridge fell silent. Emblazoned across the side of the vessel was a symbol. It's a blue circle with a white star in the center. It's an ancient Earth emblem, one that hadn't been seen in over 300 years. A whisper came from one of the junior officers. "Sir, that's human." Soren turned slowly. "Humans are extinct." The officer didn't answer. No one did. Because what they saw wasn't a relic. It was alive. A functioning warship. And it was headed straight for the heart of the Empire, far. Across the command deck, data officers worked quickly, scanning the ship for any signals, any clue. But there was nothing. No communications, no response to hails, no signs of life. Yet it moved with purpose, slowly, steadily, and directly toward the capital moon. The Admiral activated the defense protocols. Send 3 drone cruisers. Observe. Only no aggression. And prepare the planetary shields. "Sir," one officer asked, hesitantly, "should we notify the Throne Council?" Soren stared at the screen. They'll know soon enough. The drones launched like silver arrows, flying fast and tight toward the intruder. They reached within 1,000 kilometers and then, suddenly, every screen on Outpost 9 went black. For 5 seconds, nothing. When the lights returned, all 3 drones were gone. No explosion, no debris, just silence. The bridge erupted into chaos. Officers shouted reports. Engines warmed. Fighters prepared for launch. But the Admiral remained quiet, staring into the darkness beyond the window. He knew this wasn't an attack. If it was, they would all be dead. No. This was a message, and he didn't know what it meant. Back in the Imperial capital on the moon of Caltrax, news spread quickly. Red alert, unknown vessel, possible first contact. The words were repeated across every city. Civilian transports were grounded. Military divisions were put on standby. But in the halls of the Golden Throne, the High Council met behind closed doors. At the head of the chamber, the Emperor's advisor, Lord Van, addressed the ancient rulers. "This ship is not alien," he said, voice low and serious. "It's..." Human gasps followed. Disbelief. But the human systems collapsed centuries ago, one noble protested. Earth was destroyed. Their colonies died off. "We saw to that," Van replied. "We thought they died." Hologram of the ship hovered above the council table. "Our records show this design matches a class of human dreadnoughts called Solar Class. They were banned after the Galactic Uprising. Only 2 were ever built. Both were believed lost." "So you're saying this ship ... survived?" "I'm saying," Van said coldly, "that someone has returned." The room fell silent. Out in the void, the warship continued its slow approach. On board, one figure stood at the control helm. A man, tall and lean, wearing a uniform that looked more like armor. His face was calm, unreadable. His eyes, pale gray, reflected the stars. He looked at the Empire's systems spread before him. So much had changed, but not enough. He spoke to no one, yet the ship responded. Phase 1 complete, he said quietly. They're watching. On the main console, a countdown began. Single transmission loaded. Just one word. Return. At outpost. 9. The message hit the system like a lightning strike. Officers stared as the word blinked across every screen. No explanation. No threat. Just that one word. Soren leaned in, confused. Return? Return what? Who? A technician ran up, sir. There's a voice file hidden in the signal. It's .human, male. Play it. The bridge went silent. The voice was calm, strong, measured. To the empire that shattered the stars, this is your echo. To those who silenced Earth, this is your sound. You believed the fire would never come back. You were wrong. Return what was taken, or witness the return of everything you fear. Static followed, then silence. That night the Emperor stood. Alone in his private chamber, he had heard the voice. He had seen the ship, and he knew what it meant. He remembered Earth. He remembered the war. Back then, humans had been rising, building, exploring, dreaming. But they were too wild, too bold. The Empire feared what they could become, so they burned them. They erased their systems, blocked their technology, sent false histories across the stars, and then they moved on. But now, something from that forgotten past was back, and it had not forgotten across the galaxy. Whispers spread like wind, a human warship, alone, untouched, unstoppable. Some called it a myth, others a threat. Some believed it was a sign from the gods, but in the shadows, there were those who remembered. Old rebels, secret historians, smugglers who once dealt with the last human outposts before they vanished, and they began to move back on outposts. 9. A junior communications officer named Kel sat alone in the signal room, playing the message over and over. Something about it stirred him. It's not fear, but something deeper. He didn't know why, but the voice felt familiar. Late in the night, he opened a hidden file. An old recording passed down from his grandfather. Secret memory. The voice matched. His grandfather had once served a human captain, long before the Purge, and he had believed always that the humans would return. Kel whispered to himself. He was right. In the final hours before dawn, the Empire's War Council met again. Their options were limited. Attack? Impossible. Couldn't even scan the ship. Ignore it. Too dangerous. Surrender. It's thinkable. They voted to prepare the Celestial Hammer, the most powerful fleet in the Empire, to intercept and stop the intruder before it reached the capital. But the admiral in charge, Soren, hesitated. He looked again at the symbol on the ship, a star inside a circle. Old Earth's dream, he whispered. Why now? Why after all this time? No one had the answer, but deep inside, feared the truth. The ship had not come to start a war. It had come to show that the war never ended, and in the heart of the great human vessel, lone among machines older than memory, the last son of Earth, closed his eyes. He could feel the Empire watching, preparing, panicking. Good. They needed to remember, because the stars had forgotten the fire of mankind, and he had come to remind them, not with armies, but with a voice and a warship. The Empire had faced rebellions, plagues, invasions, and even black hole storms. But nothing had shaken its core like the silent arrival of a forgotten warship. It drifted alone, unchallenged, unscanned, and untouchable, casting a shadow across. Every powerful system and every bold admiral, the message it had sent return, still echoed across command centers and political halls. Yet no one knew what it truly meant. At the edge of Imperial territory, where the darkness of the void touched the stars of civilization, the Celestial Hammer fleet gathered. It was the Empire's might. Hundreds of ships, thousands of crew, all trained for one mission, to destroy anything that dared threaten the galactic order. Led by Admiral Tyron Vex, a ruthless tactician known for burning resistance worlds. The fleet began its silent march toward the intruder, but the warship didn't slow. It didn't change course, it didn't show fear. And that frightened even Vex on board. The Imperial flagship Valor's Rise, Admiral Vex studied the enemy vessel through high-resolution scans, but every scan came back blank. No engine readings, no weapon signatures, no life signs. Just cold, dead steel moving with purpose. "This isn't a ship," he growled. "It's a ghost." Beside him, Commander Isla, younger but sharp-minded, shook her head. "Ghosts don't destroy drones without a trace." Vex leaned closer to the display. "How does something that size hide its energy?" "It's impossible. It's human," Isla said quietly. "They used to make ships with quantum cloaks and pulse core drives. Stuff the Empire banned centuries ago," Vex scoffed. "You believe those old war stories?" "Maybe we should." "Have?" Back in the Imperial capital, Lord Van paced inside the vault of records, deep beneath the throne halls. Only a few had access to this place where the darkest truths were buried. He opened a file sealed under code. Solar-class dreadnoughts. Earth's last weapon. The text was brief. 2 ships were built by humanity during the last years of Earth's expansion. Soul Avenger and Gaia's Wrath. Designed for deep space survival and destruction, commanded by one pilot, powered by artificial minds and living metal. When Earth fell, both ships vanished. Van's hands trembled. Soul Avenger had returned, and now it was inside Imperial territory. Inside the warship, human pilots stood in silence. The bridge was vast, hollow, more like a cathedral than a control center. Machines lined the walls. Screens floated in the air like ghosts. The ship was not being flown, it was thinking. He placed a hand on the console. "They've sent the fleet," the ship answered in a whisper only he could hear. "Analysis complete. The fleet's weapons cannot breach our core. Threat level, minimal." He nodded. "Let them come. Let them see what they made us become." Name was Kale Voss, the last captain of Earth, and this was his mission. The Celestial Hammer fleet approached slowly. Shields raised, weapons armed. They stopped just outside firing range. Tense silence spread across the command decks. "Admiral." Vex gave the order. "Open comes." No response. "Send warning." Still no reply. "Fire a warning shot." Vex commanded. A plasma missile fired across space, exploding a safe distance from the human vessel. No reaction. Again. Second missile closer this time. Still nothing, Commander Isla whispered. "Maybe we shouldn't push it." Vex slammed his fist. Fire direct hit. 5 warships launched their main cannons at once. Red beams of death raced through the stars and vanished. Not into his shield. Not into the hull vanished. The Empire's deadliest weapons had just been swallowed. Like sparks in water, panic broke out on Valor's rise. Engineers scrambled to recheck weapons. Pilots shouted in fear. The warship remained silent. Then without. A single shot. The Empire's worst nightmare began. Every ship in the front row 30. Imperial destroyers simply shut down. Their engines died. Their lights went dark. One by one, they drifted into nothingness. Powerless, speechless, and blind. Commander Isla looked at Vex. "We just lost 30 ships without a fight." Vex stared at the screen, sweat on his brow. "This isn't war," he whispered. "This is humiliation." Across the stars, civilian broadcasts were hacked, screens glitched, holograms shifted, and a message played galaxy-wide. It was the same voice as before. Calm, human, focused. "You sent machines to observe. You sent fleets to threaten. You erased our home. Now you see what we became. We do not seek revenge. We seek remembrance. We are not ghosts. We are mirrors. What you see is what you created. Return." And again, the message ended. No demand. Just the word return. On the mining planet of Drelos 4, an old scavenger named Hark sat watching the message. His skin was weathered, eyes dim, but when he saw the symbol on the ship, he stood up straight. He remembered. As a child, he had seen a human captain land on his father's farm. The captain gave them tools, medicine, and a promise. "We'll come back," the human had said. No one believed him, but now. The star had returned, and Hark, for the first time in 50 years, wept. Back in the Empire's throne council, chaos had broken out. Some demanded full-scale war. Others whispered about negotiating. One council member screamed, "This is a bluff. One ship can't stand against an empire." Lord Van stepped forward, calm and deadly. "That's not just a ship. It's a memory armed with a cannon." "Then what do we do?" Van didn't blink. "Stop lying." Everyone stared. "We built our empire on silence," he continued. "We erased Earth, burned their colonies, lied to our citizens. But that ship survived. That man survived. And now he's here. Not with a weapon, but with truth. We can't let that truth spread." "Too late," Van replied. "It already has." Inside the Soul Avenger, Kale sat in the center of the control room. Lights danced across the walls. Data streamed around him. He could feel the galaxy watching. Afraid, angry, curious. He opened a small compartment. Inside was a necklace. Old, worn, with a tiny symbol of Earth. He held it for a long time. Then he whispered, "One more move. Then we reveal everything." The ship responded. Target, Imperial Archive Moon. Course set. Kale stood. "Let's show them the files they buried." Meanwhile, aboard Valor's Rise, Vex watched as the human ship simply turned and left. No victory, no threat, just quiet departure. He didn't follow. He couldn't. "How do you fight something that doesn't fear you?" he muttered. Commander Isla said nothing. She looked at the path the ship had taken. Toward the Archive Moon, she remembered her grandfather once said. "The truth is always dangerous, but sometimes it's the only weapon you need." And now, that weapon was flying straight toward the Empire's biggest lie. On the Archive Moon, deep under layers of security, ancient files slept. Documents, audio, images, everything the Empire had hidden for centuries. They thought it was safe. They were wrong. Because as Soul Avenger approached, its systems began hacking every layer of protection. Not with brute force, but with codes written in the past. The same codes humans had once shared with the Empire before the betrayal. Doors unlocked. Vaults opened, and soon, entire galaxy would see what the Empire had done in the final minutes of that day. Systems all across the galaxy lit up. New broadcasts, new files, new truths, photos of burned human cities. Secret orders from Empire leaders. Maps of hidden wars. Confessions from admirals. Every lie exposed, and floating above it all, one ship, a symbol, a message. Return. The stars seemed quieter now, as if space itself had paused to listen. Across the galaxy, truths long buried were spilling out like blood from a deep wound. The Soul Avenger, the impossible human warship, had done what no weapon could have cracked. The Empire's lies open. Systems once loyal were now questioning. Cities once silent were now whispering. And at the center of it all stood one man, Kale Voss, the last captain of Earth. But few knew his name. Fewer still knew his story, until now. On the Archive Moon, alarms screamed as the Soul Avenger hovered just above the surface. No soldiers came, no weapons fired. The warship didn't need them to. It had already taken what it came for. Inside the moon's core vault, thousands of files blinked open. On terminals and satellites, the galaxy watched videos of Earth's final days. Crowded cities, peaceful parks, bright oceans, then explosions. Fire from orbit, Empire fleets bombing their own allies. And in the center of every image, young Kale, a pilot in training, watching it all fall apart. In one video, he held his sister's hand. In another, he stood beside a burning library, his face cold with rage. His voice came through the final clip. "We won't be remembered as victims. We will be remembered as proof." Then the screen went black, and the stars turned silent once more. Deep in the capital, the Emperor stood before his mirror. His face had aged, his eyes heavy with sleeplessness. He had not spoken publicly since the warship's arrival. Now he listened as advisors begged him to act. "Crush him," one shouted. He's one man and a relic. Send assassins, another whispered, or use the psychic division. But the Emperor didn't speak. Not yet. About weapons. It was about shame. And shame was harder to kill than any enemy. Back on the Soul Avenger, Kale walked slowly down the ship's central corridor. His footsteps echoed against walls of living metal. The ship spoke softly in his mind, offering updates. All systems green. Enemy fleets holding position. Civil unrest rising on 7 Imperial planets. Kale paused. Any human life signs? The ship went quiet, then none detected. He closed his eyes. 300 years of silence. 300 years of exile. And now he was truly alone, or so he believed. Far across the stars. On a quiet moon orbiting a gas giant, a secret base blinked to life. Long dormant beacons activated. A figure stepped from cryo-sleep. A woman, eyes fierce, voice cracked from age and time. Soul Avenger, she whispered. Kale made it. Her name was Mira Voss, his sister. She was still alive, and the galaxy didn't know it yet. Meanwhile, across the Empire, chaos spread like a virus. On trading stations, citizens demanded answers. On border planets, governors stepped down in schools. Old textbooks were burned. New voices rose calling. Earth not extinct, but murdered. And still, Kale said nothing more. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any army. Inside the warship's memory room, Kale sat before a long wall of glass. Behind it, holograms floated, each one a person, a moment, a piece of history. His parents, teachers, fellow pilots, scientists, all gone. But all remembered. He stared at one memory, an old Earth sunset, the final one he saw before the sky. Turned red. The ship's voice echoed gently. You have access to all archive moon data. Do you wish to transmit more? Kale shook his head. Not yet. Why? They're not ready. He stood and walked to a chamber locked for years. A door sealed not by code, but by oath, he placed. His hand on the panel, it opened. Inside a chair. A pod. A weapon. But not one that fired. It was built for speaking, broadcasting, reaching across. The stars, it was Earth's final voice, and he was ready to use it in the Empire's military command. Base. Admiral Soren received an alert. The Soul Avenger was powering a high-energy transmission array. He frowned. Is it a weapon? The technician checked the data. No, sir. It's a message. To who? The screen lit up. To everyone. Across ships, colonies, and planets. Devices activated. Holograms shimmered. Walls glowed. Every citizen saw the same thing. Kale Voss standing alone, wearing the faded colors of Earth. His voice calm, clear, human. My name is Kale. I was born on Earth. I watched it burn. I escaped in a ship built not for war but for memory. Death. Paused, letting the weight settle. You were told we were dangerous? You were told we vanished. You were told to forget. Another pause. This time longer, we didn't vanish. We survived. We waited. We remembered. And now I ask only this. Remember with us. The screen faded. Then a final image. A small blue. Planet Earth. Hole. Gone that night. Cities lit candles. Children asked parents what Earth was. Soldiers refused orders. Historians wept and in quiet homes. Some whispered Kale's name like a prayer. Not as a hero, but as a mirror, because he was right. They had forgotten, and he had returned not with fire, but with memory. High in orbit above a forgotten moon, the Soul Avenger shut down its weapons. Shields dropped. Engines powered low. It waited. Not to strike, but to see who the Empire truly was when it was no longer in control. Inside, staring out at the stars, he wondered how many humans had escaped.
How many?
Still lived. How many waited like he had? He didn't know, but something in his heart told him he wasn't alone anymore. In the shadows of a rebel world, an old woman watched the speech. She wore a pendant with the Earth symbol. She smiled. Kale kept the promise, she said softly. Now we rise. She opened a drawer. Inside were old blueprints of a ship, a second warship. Its name, Gaia's Wrath, and far, far beyond the Empire's reach, deep in a silent nebula. Another ship, another ship, another. Signal. A second memory waking up, and the stars trembled, because the past was no longer behind them. It was coming fast. The galaxy no longer slept. The Empire's great walls of silence had cracked. And through those cracks came voices, long buried, long feared, long forgotten. The image of Earth, once erased from maps and minds, now burned in every system. Children drew its blue oceans in school. Soldiers hung its symbol in bunkers. And in the heart of the storm, the Soul Avenger remained still, quiet, and watchful. But peace was not its purpose. It had not come just to show a lie. It had come to reveal the fire behind it, and that moment had arrived in the skies above. The Imperial Archive moon, the warship, began to move again. Slow, precise, unarmed. Kale Voss stood alone at the center of his ship, staring into the stream of information flooding the galaxy. The first wave of files, the truth of Earth's destruction, had spread like wildfire. Now, it was time for the second wave. He opened a sealed archive, one that no Empire citizen had ever seen. Project Silence. Inside were thousands of documents, orders signed by the Emperor himself, footage of orbital strikes, and most damning of all, video of the Empire's elite watching Earth's final moments. Laughing, Kale watched the same video every year. On the anniversary of Earth's fall, he no longer cried. Now, he would make the Empire remember what they tried to forget. Back on the capital moon of Caltrax, the Emperor watched his advisors argue. This must be false, one said. This is fabricated by rebels. Another shouted, it's him. It's that ship. He's hacking the network. The Emperor said nothing. He stood before a giant screen, watching the images in silence. Children screaming in burning cities. Human leaders begging for peace. Empire ships answering with fire. He remembered it all. Not as a stranger, but as a commander. He had been young then, hungry, fearful of what humanity might become. He had voted for Earth's destruction, and now that vote had returned to haunt him. Kale's voice echoed across every planet once more. But this time, it carried something. Deeper, not just pain, not just proof, but power. You destroyed Earth, he said. You erased it not because we attacked you, but because you feared us. We grew too fast. We dreamed too far. Instead of joining us, you ended us. Face remained calm, but his eyes burned. We offered peace. You gave fire. We asked for unity. You gave silence. So now, we give you memory. Feel what we felt. Know what you did. He raised his hand. Opened the channel. The Soul Avenger released a wave. Not data. Not weapons. But something far more dangerous. It shared memory across the Empire. Civilians collapsed to their knees. Not in pain, but in vision. The ship had released a memory pulse. A psychic wave encoded in light and sound, touching every mind it could reach. And in that moment, every person saw Earth die. Not on screen, but in their own minds. They felt the heat, the fear, the hopelessness. For 2 minutes, the Empire became human. And when it ended, nothing felt the same. In a quiet home on the mining world of Broxer, a child clutched her mother. Why did we do that? She whispered. Her mother had no answer, because there was none. Admiral Soren, watching from a distant fleet, removed his helmet and sat down. His hands shook. His eyes were red. He had spent his life enforcing the Empire's laws. Now he wondered. If every order he ever gave had been built on lies, he tapped the communicator. Get me Kale Voss. Inside the Soul Avenger, Kale listened to the incoming call.
Oh.
It was not a demand, not a threat. It was a voice filled with uncertainty. Why now? Soren asked. Kale didn't hesitate. Because I wanted you to see it. I wanted all of you to feel it. Not the facts, not the reports, but the fire. The sound of families lost, the silence afterward. Soren spoke quietly. You've won. The people believe you. Kale shook his head. This was never about belief. It was about truth. Now the Empire must choose. Deny again, or heal. Soren was silent. Then, and if they choose denial? Kale's eyes went cold. Then the fire returns. Elsewhere. In the galaxy, on a rogue broadcast station orbiting the desert planet Axter, Mira Voss activated her signal. She had remained hidden long enough. The galaxy needed to know. Kale was not the only one. Her voice rang out across secret channels. My name is Mira. I am human. I survived, and I'm not alone. Rebel groups, old smugglers, former scholars all stopped what they were doing. A second voice, second survivor. The myth was becoming real. The resistance was waking. In the halls of the Throne Council, the Emperor finally spoke. His voice was low, barely above a whisper. We were wrong. The advisors froze. My father, forward him, taught me to fear humans, to destroy what could not be controlled. But in doing so, we became the thing we feared. He stood tall. We cannot undo what was done, but we can end what remains. The lies, the fear, the silence. He stepped from the throne. And for the first time in history, an emperor left the council not to fight, but to listen, in orbit above the archive moon. Kale stood before the viewports as a signal came through, a direct message from the emperor, text only. We are ready to speak. Kale didn't smile. He had waited too long, lost too much, but still, it was a beginning. He turned to his ship. Take us to the capital. As the Soul Avenger changed course, people across the Empire gathered in silence, on rooftops, in fields, by terminals, waiting. The warship was no longer an enemy. It was a witness, a reminder, and perhaps a guide. Somewhere deep in the void, the second human warship, Gaia's Wrath, stirred from sleep. Mira entered the bridge. Her fingers ran across dusty panels. We waited too long, brother, she whispered. But now the galaxy is listening. Lights flickered to life, stars reflected off the hull, and the second ship's leak. Fast, powerful, joined the journey. Together. They would tell the galaxy the rest of the story, because memory was not enough. Now, it was time for action. The skies above the Imperial capital had never looked like this before. The Soul Avenger hovered above the seat of power, silent and still. Its shadow stretched across the golden towers and glass domes of Caltrax. It made no demands. It pointed. No weapons. But everyone could feel it, a weight pressing on their minds, a memory they couldn't forget. Below, the streets were full. Citizens marched, holding images of Earth. Some wore the symbol of the blue star. Others carried screens, replaying Kale's message again and again. What started as whispers had become waves. What began as a warning had turned into movement, and it was spreading fast. Inside the palace, the Emperor stood in his private chamber. Watching the protests from above, his face was pale, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. For hours, he had refused to speak. Not to his advisors, not to his generals, but now he had no choice. Lord Van entered quietly. The people are rising, Your Grace. They want truth. They want justice. The Emperor turned slowly. Justice against whom? Van hesitated then. Us. At the edge of the capital district, the military held its line. Riot troops in. Black armor blocked roads. Patrol ships hovered low. Drones buzzed overhead, but the crowd didn't stop. They didn't run, because they weren't afraid anymore. Admiral Soren watched from the command center. He remembered the voice of Kale Voss. The voice that had cracked the armor of his loyalty. Now that crack had become a canyon. A young officer ran in. Sir, we have a problem. Multiple battalions are refusing orders. They won't fire on the protesters. Soren didn't move. Which battalions? The officer checked his pad. Yours, sir. In the warship above, Kale stood before a wall of projections. News from every corner of the Empire scrolled past. Rebellions, uprisings, desertions, governors fleeing, entire fleets lowering their banners, and one phrase repeated everywhere: "We remember Earth." The ship's voice chimed. Target systems collapsing. Carrier loyalty rating, 43% and falling. Kale exhaled. It's happening. It wasn't over. Not yet. He turned to the ship's AI core. Want to send the final files? Are you sure they need to see everything? He placed his hand on the console. Release Project Eclipse. The Empire had many secrets, but none as dark as this. Project Eclipse was a Black Ops program buried in the deepest vaults. It wasn't just about destroying Earth. It was about controlling the story afterward. Brainwashing colonies, eliminating historians, creating fake alien, threats to justify more wars. Kale had found it all. Videos, logs, confessions, and now the galaxy would see it. Screens across every world flickered to life. A high-ranking Imperial scientist appeared. I was ordered to erase the past. I created false textbooks. I silenced witnesses. I helped hide Earth's light. He paused, tears running down his face. But I can't carry it anymore. The transmission ended, and then the galaxy exploded. Not in war, but in anger. On the jungle moon of Vetra. Miners laid down their tools and stormed the government center, on the ice world of Krass. 1,000 soldiers turned on their commanders, and in the prison colony of Selenex, the inmates, many of them falsely jailed for speaking of Earth, were freed by their guards. Rebellion had begun, not from weapons, but from truth. Meanwhile, deep beneath the palace, the Emperor activated a hidden vault. He entered a code known only to 3 men in history. Inside, a single weapon, not a bomb, not a cannon, but a virus. A digital weapon called Dread Silence, built to erase all Earth-related data forever across the Empire, across ships, across personal memories. Once launched, every piece of the truth would vanish. But before he could activate it, the door opened behind him. Kale Voss stood there alone, unarmed. The Emperor turned, shocked. You came in person." Kale nodded. "Wait, this isn't something I can stop from orbit." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You think I won't kill you?" Kale stepped closer. "Wait, I think you've seen what comes next, and I think you're tired." The Emperor looked at the virus switch, then at Kale, then at the screen, where a child on a colony watched Earth's sunrise for the first time. Finally, he lowered his hand. "I was," he whispered, "just a man following orders." Kale's voice was steel, "And I'm the man who remembers the cost." Outside, the protests stopped, not because they were crushed, but because something impossible happened. The Soul Avenger landed, not in fire, not in battle, but in peace. Kale walked through the crowds. People reached out to touch him, to thank him, and he wept. He walked straight to the central plaza and placed the Earth symbol on the ground, a simple blue circle, and the Empire. First time in centuries, knelt before it, but far away. In a dark sector untouched by rebellion, a secret signal was sent. A figure in shadows spoke to an unseen audience. Phase 1 complete. Empire destabilized. Prepare Phase 2. In the background, a new ship powered up, sleek, black, cruel. Not human, not imperial, something else. Watching, waiting, and ready to strike when both sides were weak. Back in the warship, Kale received a message from deep space, encrypted human coding. He opened it. A woman's voice, familiar, steady, unbroken. "Brother, I'm alive, and I have a ship." Kale froze, then smiled for the first time in a long, long time. "Mira," he looked at the stars. The story wasn't over. It was just changing shape. The Empire was breaking. Its flag still flew on thousands of worlds, but they no longer meant the same. Soldiers removed their badges. Teachers rewrote their lessons. Monuments to conquest were painted over with the symbol of Earth, a blue circle, and a star. But power does not vanish peacefully, and those who built their lives on fear were not ready to let go. Far above the burning edges of the capital moon, the Soul Avenger hovered like a silent guardian. It had become more than a ship, it was now a symbol, a reminder of what had been erased and what must never be forgotten again. Inside, Kel'Vos stood at the main viewport, watching the Empire collapse under its own weight. He had not fired a single shot, but he had changed everything. In the palace command tower, Lord Van watched the final broadcasts with hollow eyes. The Emperor had vanished, gone into seclusion after stepping down, his name now more curse than title. Vaughn was left in charge of what remained, a government crumbling from the inside, a fleet that refused to fight, and a frightened elite clinging to old lies. He turned to General Krall, the last loyal commander. Can we still stop this? Krall shook his head. Half the fleet has defected. The other half refuses to move. The ground forces are in disarray. We're not facing a rebellion, Van. We are standing in the middle of an awakening. Van slammed his fist on the table. Then we burn it down. We use dread silence. We wipe everything. The files, the broadcasts, the people. Everything that remembers Earth. Krall didn't move. That would mean civil war. It already is. The Soul Avenger picked up the signal first, a quiet military transmission. Deep-coded and hidden under old clearance layers. Authorization, Firefall Protocol. Execute, dread silence. Begin purge. Kale's heart dropped. He turned to the ships. Core, can we stop it? The ship replied instantly. Virus transmission detected. Infiltrating all public and private data systems. Countdown, 6 minutes to full erasure. Kale didn't wait. Shut it down. Insufficient access. Need direct link to Central Throne Command. He knew what that meant. He had to return to the palace, to the throne, to the place where it all started. Outside, the capital burned. Not with fire, but with fury. Millions marched through the streets, not in chaos, but with unity. They no longer feared the throne. They no longer believed its lies. They believed in something else now. They believed in Earth and in Kale. When the Soul Avenger opened its ramp, the crowd parted in silence. Kale walked through them, not like a conqueror, but like a messenger. He carried no weapon, only a memory, inside the throne room. Van watched as Kale entered, calm and unarmed. You always appear when it's too late, Van said bitterly. Kale didn't stop. He walked straight to the central console. I'm here to stop what you're about to do. Van stood, blocking his path. Why should I let you? Kale looked him in the eyes. Biku. Because you don't want to be the last man remembered for trying to kill the truth. The room went quiet. For a long time, neither moved. Then slowly, Van stepped aside. Kale reached the console and connected his ship remotely. The virus was already halfway through, but the Soul Avenger had its own countercode. The 2A is clash memory. Against erasure, truth against silence, and in the final seconds, Kale whispered, let the stars remember. The virus broke, the truth survived, and the throne collapsed, not with an explosion, but with a sigh. Above, in the skies beyond the Empire, another ship appeared, sleek, fast, black and gold. Gaia's Wrath. Mira Voss stood at its helm, her voice calm and direct. To all who still believe humanity died, you were wrong. I am Mira. I am Kale's sister, and I carry Earth's legacy. We are not here to rule. We're not here to destroy. We are here to protect those who remember. Her message ended, but the wave it caused shook the stars. Across border sectors, new coalitions began to rise. Former Empire worlds joined hands not as vassals, but as equals. Old resistance networks reactivated under a new flag, one that showed a star inside a circle, but with space around it. Open, limitless. It was not a flag of war, it was a flag of remembrance. But while the people rejoiced, danger brewed elsewhere in the deep black beyond the star lanes. On a dark and silent station, the real enemy watched, not imperial, not human, but Something ancient and patient, the shadow figure who had sent the Phase 2 signal, moved across a glowing control wall. Memory restored, it said. Empire fractured, humanity returned. A second figure spoke. Now we move. They are weak. The screen showed both human warships. They will either serve or burn. Back in the palace ruins, Kale and Mira stood together for the first time in 3 centuries. No words, just a long, quiet embrace. Both had lost everything, but neither was alone anymore around them. People gathered, not as subjects, not as soldiers, but as witnesses. Mira looked to her brother. You started a fire? Kale looked back at her. Now we light the stars. Above them, in orbit, 2 ships waited. Soul Avenger, Gaia's Wrath, no longer ghosts, now guardians, and soon they would face a new darkness, because not every secret had been revealed. The galaxy was breathing again. The Empire had fallen not in flames, but in memory. Its banners no longer ruled from fear, and the truth of Earth had shattered centuries of silence. Across planets and moons, people gathered beneath new flags. Some held the Earth symbol, others painted stars. But all of them looked up not in fear, but in hope, in orbit. 2 human warships stood side by side, Soul Avenger, Gaia's Wrath. For the first time in 300 years, Earth's legacy was not alone. But peace is not a wall. It is a window. And through that window, something had seen them, something waiting, something old in the deep black between galaxies. Beyond the edge of any known star chart, an ancient signal pulsed awake. Its code was not imperial, not human. It was older than both. It carried no words only. Intent. Invasion Protocol Activida. Massive fleets stirred hundreds of obsidian ships, shaped like blades, moving without engines. They fed on gravity. They drank energy like water. Their purpose was not conquest. It was consumption, and the rebirth of Earth had triggered them. On board the Soul Avenger, Kale Voss stood in silence. Alarms blinked around him, but he didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the screen, where a star system had just vanished. Not attacked, not damaged, vanished. Every planet gone, no heat, no remains, just blackness. Mira's voice came through from Gaia's Wrath. What was that? Kale replied with one word. An answer. To what? To our return. At the edge of Rebel space, a scout station caught the first visual dozens of enemy vessels dropping from hyperspace. They had no lights, no signals. They moved like shadows, silent, deliberate, precise. The station sent a final message. They're not invading. They're feeding. Then it went dark. In the former capital, newly freed citizens panicked. Some believed it was a trick from the old empire. Others thought it was punishment from the stars. But Kale knew better. This was not revenge. This was extinction. And it was coming fast. Aboard Gaia's Wrath. Mira stood before a rotating 3D map of the invasion path. They're heading straight for the core systems. If we don't stop them, they'll consume everything, including the memory we just fought to restore. Kale's voice came through. They don't want power. They don't want planets. They want silence. True silence. Mira understood. They're afraid of memory. Kale gathered the resistance leaders aboard Soul Avenger, Admiral Soar, former rebels, even defected Empire officers. They argued over tactics, over evacuation, over diplomacy. But Kale ended the debate with one sentence. We either stand together or vanish alone. The room fell silent, and the alliance was born. They called it the Remembrance Front, not a government, not an empire, but a wall of minds. Hearts and machines determined not to be forgotten. Kale took command of the fleet not as a ruler, but as a guardian and their target. A single massive black ship at the center of the invading force. It had no name, no markings, just a signal. Al. Light must die as the enemy approached, star by star. Kale prepared Soul Avenger for the final jump. He recorded a message just in case. To whoever finds this, know that we tried. We stood not for power, not for glory, but for the right to exist. to be remembered. If we fall, remember Earth. Remember what came after. Don't let the silence win. Then he launched, and the final battle began. The clash near the Varnic star was unlike anything ever recorded. The Remembrance fleet attacked in coordinated waves. Ships of every kind, Empire cruisers, rebel frigates, human dreadnoughts fought as one. But the enemy didn't fight back in the way they expected. They absorbed, for every laser fired. The black ships grew stronger, for every missile launched. The enemy learned it was not a battle, it was a test. And the galaxy was failing. Inside Gaia's wrath, Mira activated the forbidden weapon, an Earth-era relic. The pulse of memory, it wasn't a gun, it was a burst of emotion projected through psychic frequencies. Tied to real memories, joy, fear, hope, love. She unleashed it. And for the first time, black ships paused. They shook, and one shattered. Kale saw it from Soul Avenger. They fear memory, he said. Not because it resists, but because it reminds them what they lost. Mira responded. They were once alive. And now they hate anything that still is. Kale made the call. The warships would not win this with fire. They would win it with truth. The fleet transmitted everything, memories from Earth, the fall, the pain, the dreams. Civilians joined. Billions of minds sharing one thought. We exist. We remember. And the black fleet cracked. One by one they collapsed, screaming not in sound, but in pulses, dying from something they could not destroy. Hope. The final ship, massive. Silent Dash remained. It aimed straight for Kale. No weapons. Just a course. A collision. A suicide strike. Kale knew what he had to do. He turned to the ship's AI. Eject all data. Send it to Myra. Understood. He looked out the window then. Whispered, Earth wasn't our beginning. It was our promise. And he flew straight into the dark. The explosion lit the void. Bright, blinding, final. And the last enemy ship was gone, but so was Kale Voss, the last captain of Earth, back on Gaia's wrath. Mira received his data core. It still glowed with memory. She clutched it to her chest, tears in her eyes. You kept your promise, she whispered. Now I'll keep mine. Years passed. The galaxy rebuilt not around thrones, but around truths. The Earth symbol became a beacon on every planet. Schools taught the full history ships were named after. Kale Voss, and a new planet was chosen not to replace Earth, but to carry its name, Arthlight. A new home. A New Hope. Mira sat by a lake one evening, under unfamiliar stars, holding the same necklace Kale had once worn around her.
Oh.
Children laughed. Above her 2 moons shined. She whispered to the sky, We didn't save the past, but we built the future. And the stars, for the first time in centuries, were silent. Not in fear, but in peace.